Azealia Banks. No, I'm not knowledgeable or interested really in her music, but she's a rapper who has made some waves on on X primarily for sort of hot takes that are sort of uninformed versions of, I guess, what some people might think is sort of alt-right positions, or at least she's not afraid to go that way sometimes. Tends to be bizarre and a bit crude and maybe a bit contradictory. But here, she recently is doing some shows in Israel because she's got some fans there because she's been pretty pro-Israel. So here you see that she actually comes out draped in an Israeli flag for this show. This is October 10th, 2025, this byline. It says, "I love the Jews. My love story with the Jews goes far, far back," declares controversial rapper who's been outspoken in her support of Israel. And then she talks a little bit about this. And you may say, okay, what's that to do? By the way, this is a show from Tel Aviv on October 9th, the one that you were seeing there. It's pretty rare that you have a foreign artist, from their perspective, in Israel like this. It's pretty rare, but Azelia has fans over there, and so she was doing the thing, right? Especially, it's been even more rare since October 7th. Let me maybe make that further qualification, right? She had a Star of David necklace on, and she's fought with other celebrities because of her strong support of Israel. Gotten in kind of word battles with them on X and whatnot. Do you know who she is, everyone? Have you seen her ever mentioned? And if not, that's okay, because look, she ended her concert, the article says, wearing a shirt printed with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's name, stating that she gets stronger every time she is canceled for her statements. I love the Jews, da-da-da. Okay, now that's interesting, right? She's got 300,000 followers. It's pretty significant. There's her show there. "I still don't understand how the music industry hasn't treated this as a direct attack on the freedom and purity of simply enjoying and being free at a music festival," said Banks on Instagram. "It's just devastating." All right. And then in September, hundreds of musicians asked for their works to be blocked from distribution in Israel as part of an initiative called No Music for Genocide. Banks responded this week with an Instagram story posting that she was still able to access Icelandic artist Björk while in Israel, though the musician appears to have joined the music boycott of Israel as her work recently became unavailable to Israelis via 2 key streaming services. And then she talks about it's not apartheid and things like that. But here's what's interesting. When she went back there in 2018, she actually said that she would never come back because she allegedly, apparently had some racist encounters, but seems to have a change of heart in June. Then says on X, "I'm a Zionist." All right. Okay, so she's going to dress up as the Queen of Sheba for Halloween. Oh my gosh. A tick advertisement. Really gross. Why do they make advertisements like that? That's for ticks? My goodness. Ugh. If you have those, get them taken care of. And then she retweeted Netanyahu about Trump should win the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, this is all building up to something. And she responded to a comment on X by British activist Tommy Robinson and wrote, "Israel is a vibe. There's so much North African and Arab influence in the city culture, except everyone was walking around drinking green juice and carrying surfboards like it's LA 2004. So you say, okay, all right, interesting. Yeah, so what's the fiasco? Well, see, what had happened is she made some tweets, and I think I'll just let her explain it. So we're going to listen to, she went on X and did what's called Spaces. We're going to listen to her talk about this. She does have some language here about how this fiasco unfolded and how the Hebrew Israelites name came up. Here we go.
So I was hanging out with friends yesterday, this Israeli girl that I know, and we were talking about wigs, and she was like, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of Black Americans here that play basketball, and there's like girls here that play basketball. You should hit them up, you know." They will know how to get like the wig, like the good, like American wig, you know, Black American wiggery. So I just kind of said on Twitter, I was like, "Oh, I gotta find the Black Americans in Israel." I wasn't even talking about Black Hebrew Israelites or anything. I was talking about just like girls probably from, I don't know, like Atlanta or Tennessee that are like here playing on some basketball team, and that's all I was talking about. I was talking just about just like general Black Americans, not Black American Hebrew Israelites or anything like that. So this one guy jumps in and he's just like, "Oh yeah, the black there's a community of 5,000 Black Hebrew Israelites who believe that they are the true descendants of da 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 da."
So she's talking about on X these exchanges that went sideways. Now, this is her audio she recently recorded again on X. And the person who commented was talking about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. So they went by a few names, but the official name is the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem. And they have dubbed where they live the Village of Peace. And Amari Stoudemire has visited the community and helped produce a documentary called Village of Peace, same name. Their sons and daughters serve in the IDF. They enter into the beauty pageants. They're popular in the music front. There's approximately 5,000 of them, primarily in Dimona. They left south side of Chicago, went to Liberia, and then came over to Israel. And now we're talking, second, third, on and on generation of living there. Started because Ben Ami says he has a vision from Gabriel. Now, Ben Ami is dead. So this is what she's talking about, or this is what the guy on X who's talking to her saying. But Azealia is saying, I was just trying to talk to some girls from the South who had access to wigs because that's what I needed. People apparently thought she was talking about Black Israelites. She's saying I was talking about Americans in Israel. Well, people came at her kind of strong because of that.
They only started in 1969, and I was like, okay, cool, yeah, that's fine, whatever. But, obviously when somebody challenges somebody's, like, Black identity, I feel a way. And because I understand Black identity, so I'm like, all right, no, let me explain this to you about the concept of an Israelite as it pertains to, like, Pan-Africanism and just, yeah.
All right. For cows and clicks, she def not Yisrael, lol. So Illuminati is a Hebrew Israelite, and he, I assume it's a he, is just saying, hey, Azealia is a turncoat to her people. What's the big deal? Who cares what she's doing? She's definitely not for us or one of us. So what? So a lot of folks in the community, because of her controversial opinions, almost view her sort of as a, not quite on the same level, but almost like a miniature version of like us. So she's talking about this, and she starts to become offended because she feels like the people that she's arguing with, who she seems to mainly understand to be Jews or Israelis, going sort of too hard at the problem. Too hard at what she's saying, and she's saying she wasn't even saying that. So she starts to kind of feel like, hey, what's comments here?
So
hold on. You got a couple more comments. We got Mike B, who is correct. The community is established by Dr. Ben Carter. That's what his real name was, Ben Carter, and went by Ben Ami, which basically just means son of the people of Israel. And he passed away, so they got other people now in charge. William says, so many claim knowledge and are only regurgitating someone else's nonsense that fits their bias and hopes others jump on their bandwagon. Sure. Yeah. Shout out to everybody up in here, every single one of you. Now let's listen to what Azealia continues to say on this Twitter X space.
I get that everybody has this like contemporary idea of just like this little patch of land, like Palestine or the Levant, Israel, whatever. But most of the people like that, they're thinking about Israelites as like a grouping of people that were stretching all the way down from like Lebanon down into the kingdom of Cush. Israelitism and the Black Hebrew Israelitism, like most, well, I don't know what Black churches are doing now, but I know that
Okay, so you can tell she's a little scatterbrained when she speaks, but you can also tell that she knows a little bit about these issues, maybe more than the average celebrity still, you know, and has some ability to articulate a certain level of intelligence in her thoughts. And so it's kind of interesting that she's discussing these things, right? So we're listening along, saying, okay, Azealia, what do you got to say here? And she then talks a little bit about what she calls Black Hebrew Israelism. And then she's saying about Black churches, what she's going to say is connections that are seen historically to Israel in some way, which is something that we've always talked about, that there was sort of an analogical, spiritual, mystical, parallel type connection, and it became formalized or made literal with the advent of Hebrew Israelism.
Grandmother and my like Black Christian family, they use the Hebrew Bible, and there's mad slave songs written about the Promised Land and Zion and all that other shit. And we have like all these churches. It's like Zion, Church of Zion, da da da. And yeah, that's what they call themselves. They call themselves Israelites, not because they're like trying to take claim to Israel or whatever. And one of my friends hit me up, and they were just like, you know, going really hard. And I was just like, that's not really what I'm saying. And they were just like, oh, well, you know, people have been saying that we have no claim to the land. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's, first off, that's not where any, oh my God, that's not where I was going with that. I wasn't even thinking about that. I don't even like fucking know. And it just became like one thing after another, piling up in the rabbinic debates. And I'm just like, damn. The Jews really, like, they could really argue.
So she's assuming the people who are arguing with her are Jewish, and she just feels like they're piling on. And so it's making her feel like they're basically attacking Black identity directly, even though she doesn't claim to be a Black Israelite. Maybe I should have cleared that up sooner. Azealia Banks is not claiming to be a Black Israelite. In fact, she was saying, this is all a misunderstanding. I was just looking for some Black Americans so I could get some wigs. You guys assumed something and jumped on. Well, now I feel some kind of way about it. And remember, I read the article in the beginning showing you how pro-Israel she was. So this is like a turn, and people are like, oh, what's going on? The internet's calling it the Israel U-turn. But we're going to see she comes back around later on and essentially offers an apology. Shout out to Holy Heat. That is my... And you definitely get some love, my friend. Let's give you the... Yeah, people like you make it happen. I once watched a video of Israeli woman, and I almost covered that video. That video did pretty well. I remember it was filmed pretty well as far as the camera quality and whatnot. Okay, continue on with her discussion that was called Black Jewry. That's the title of this.
And then some guy jumps in, and he's like, oh, well, you know, Ethiopians aren't descendant from the thing. And I'm just like, all right, this is another attack on just like some Black identity. And this is kind of just like egging me right now. Like, so I got into the whole thing. I'm just like, honey, everything comes from Africa. Like, like, I know people, I know. But it's true. And y'all know it's true. Everything does come from Africa. I'm not a Black Hebrew Israelite. Hold on. I'm not a Black Hebrew Israelite, y'all. I'm not gonna come here and be like, oh, I'm the real Jew. No.
So here you see she's clearly saying, I'm not claiming to be a Hebrew Israelite. That's wasn't what this is about. But she's kind of shifting the discussion. Now she's saying, well, hey, look, everything's from Africa anyway. Now, ultimately, there are certain versions of Afrocentrism and maybe certain versions of related to elements of Pan-Africanist thought that will lob onto that. And you'll hear that, for example, KRS-One way back in the day. And laugh at you, Africa. Now, it ties in ultimately to a lot of secular presuppositions, mainly dealing with evolution. People need to understand that. And sort of the conscious community gloms onto it, but a lot of it's based upon evolutionary hypothesis. The scripture is describing things really in an area that appears to be essentially modern-day Iraq, and that Mesopotamian area, and you look and you see, like we're going out of Genesis 1, 2, 3, but go to Genesis 11, the plain of Shinar. It's hard to see that geographically because there's some questions to be asked. But it's anything other than being Iraq. You got the ziggurat, all the things there with Babel. And so that's representative of that from a biblical picture. But again, she's not claiming to be an Israelite. She wasn't even claiming that the folks there are actually Israelites. She was just trying to get some wigs.
I'm not a black Hebrew Israelite. Hold on. I'm not a black Hebrew Israelite, y'all. I'm not going to come here and be like, oh, I'm the real Jew. No, I never fucking said that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, and I don't agree that they're like the real Jews. But, if they feel like they have some sort of like spiritual identity to the shit, and
Notice she said, I don't think they're the real Jews. But then she's kind of subjectifying or making it a subjective thing. Like, if you feel kind of like that, okay. She's, doesn't want to go too hard on it, sort of postmodernist in that way.
I'm happy and it makes them feel whole and they want to live in Israel and pay taxes and all that, then what's the problem? I mean, what is the problem? And just like all of the comments about like Ethiopian jewelry and everything.
Okay, now we're talking about something different yet again. Now, I don't know if she realizes it or not. When you talk about the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, that's the proper name of the community in Dimona, associated with the Village of Peace and Ben Carter and all that. That's the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, okay? Now, they had different names throughout their history, but that's the official name. Now we're moving over to Beta Israel, the Ethiopia. These are two different discussions, because one group are Black Americans who came from the south side of Chicago. The other group were airlifted in the 80s and 90s out of Ethiopia, ultimately out of Ethiopia. They actually had to go into some other countries. It's a complex operation via helicopters, and the United States did this, and Israel did it. Operation Moses, and then Operation Solomon. There's even a Netflix movie about it. It has the name Hotel or something in it. I forget the name of it. Not Hotel Rwanda. I forgot what it's like. Hotel by the Red Sea or something like that. And so they're there as well. So this is a different group of people, understand? Beta Israel. Sometimes you see them referred to as Falasha. They don't like that name. It's sort of a slur, and so we just go with Beta Israel. But some people don't know the term Beta Israel is the only reason I bring it up. But that's who they are. So it's two different groups, understand?
It's like, oh, they're not descendants and all that. That was offensive. It's just like, damn, haven't Jews had it bad enough? Like,
well, what's interesting is she also doesn't think they're the real Jews. And with the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, they haven't merely just said, hey, we are going to come and move. They have been a lot more antagonistic over their history with things they've said and written. Now, they've integrated a little bit more now here into Israel, and it's a complex situation anytime you talk about these things. But she does make a good point where she says, hey, haven't y'all have it bad enough? Why would you want to kick more people out? And I think that's what the Israeli government ultimately said, like, hey, if these people want to be part of us and they're getting persecuted, why don't we bring them over here, And so that's what happened with that. And so most are in Israel today as far as the Beta Israel. Mike B says Falasha Murrah is the name of the Ethiopian Jews in Israel. What do you mean, the name? I don't think they like that name. Falasha, look this up, Mike. I don't think they like that name. That name is, you're saying it's the name. What do you mean, the name? Usually, Israelis I know talk to, they just call them Ethiopian Jews, or they just say the Ethiopian community or the Ethiopians or something like that. But when they were in Ethiopia, they especially referred to them as Beta Israel. Better Day says they just refuse to be of Ham and the lineage of Canaan. Well, so you might generally think that's true, but we really don't know, William R. says the operation that airlifted Jews out of Ethiopia was called Operation Moses. True. That's the first one, by the way. The second one was Operation Solomon. It took place between November 1984 and January 1985, during which approximately 8,000 Ethiopian Jews, Beta Israel, were, and you continue on, airlifted from Sudan to Israel to escape famine and persecution. And that's why I said ultimately out of Ethiopia, because they had to go into other countries. They actually had to go into Sudan to make the escape there. Interesting, right? Interesting stuff. Tyke says, I don't think we should idolize phenotypes. Of course. I mean, white supremacists did that. It's not good when I say did, they still do it, of course. So supremacists of all types do that. I won't tell. I'll just leave your comment up there. Quentin, no, much love to you, and I appreciate what you're saying and stuff, but we're just really not talking about that today, so I'm just not going to go over that topic. There's just so much off topic, and we got a lot to check in.
Jewelry, and everybody was just like, oh, they're not descendants and all that. That was offensive. It's just like, damn, haven't Jews had it bad enough? Like, you're trying to kick the Ethiopians out of the jewelry? Like, that don't make no sense. And the guys started going on and on about, like, oh, well, the DNA. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, not to be a smartass, but if you're going to make, like, somebody's jewelry based on DNA and you're, like, an Ashkenazi Jew, then, I mean, technically, these Palestinians have, like, Semitic.
Now, that's where her X tweets are. You guys are going to get feisty at me and claim to be this thing and no one else can be this. This is her perspective I'm trying to share. Then what about the Arabs? Maybe they have more of a claim to be actually Israelites because of the DNA. Now, a lot of this is from a place of confusion. Now, is it true that Israelis and Arabs in that area, especially, there's a lot of overlap in their DNA? Absolutely. It's very complicated. It relates to the J haplogroup and a whole bunch of other things. And that's true, but that's different than saying, well, they have just as much of a claim or they're more so. Now, I have not seen credible studies to say Arabs are more from the Levant in their background than most of people who claim to be of Israel. But you got to understand, look how similar the backgrounds are to this. So I don't know if it's a zero-sum game type situation. Now, let's try to put some of these tweets on the screen. Now, some of them might be out of order, okay? But I'm going to flip over to this, and there's Azealia. We're going to look at some of these tweets that she tweeted. This is where the controversy came in, and it's the reason she did this space is to take care of it. Now, you may be like, who cares? Well, first of all, this is recent news within the month of October. I know it didn't happen yesterday. I wanted to wait till I got some information on all this. But it's actually been a pretty big thing, and a lot of Hebrew Israelites have taken note of this, and we're actually going to talk about that before we get out of here today. And I think you're going to find it interesting, some of the Hebrew Israelites' takes on this, okay? Okay, so these are some of the people who commented back to her that she, I guess, didn't appreciate. You're straight up making stuff up. Now, it does seem like Amit jumped the gun. She wasn't doing all this, and that's what she was trying to say. You're straight up making stuff up. Judaism started in the Levant. Ethiopian and most black Jewish communities aren't direct descendants. Ancient African religions aren't Israelite Judaism, and black or Arab people have zero claim to being Israelites, and unlike them, Ashkenazim have majority Levantine ancestry. Now, we could pick this statement apart, and it does seem like overkill. It does seem like, whoa, she's just asking where to find some people, We're settled down, bruh. Now, so what's she making up? She didn't say all this, really. It's weird to say Judaism started in Levant. Because if you're talking about modern day Judaism, you could say the people, but see, that's not Judaism, that's Jews, started in Levant, absolutely. But Judaism? I mean, it went through Babylon and Persia. I mean, even the name of the Talmud, the Babylonian tractates, and then you have the Aramaic Targums. That's because they were in captivity in other places. This has to do with Assyria. And then you go over and you get modern day Judaism, and a lot of it comes out of medieval scholars and what happened in Europe and Spain and stuff. You see what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, this is, this guy's trying to correct, but he's not even all right. Ethiopian and most black Jewish, it's interesting, at least he qualified a little bit there, most black Jewish communities aren't direct descendants. But what's weird is if you say most black Jewish communities aren't direct descendants, then why would you say black or Arab people have zero claim? You see what I'm saying? Those two things, you're being careful with the word most, but then you're not being careful to say zero claim. Who would be the exception to this? The evidence, and remember, we want to go where the evidence leads, is that the Limba of South Africa and Zimbabwe, they do have ancestry that goes back to the Levant. The genetic evidence says it. So what do you mean zero claim? They are black people. The Limba are black people, especially in the Buba clan, the male priests. But it's true that ancient African religions aren't Judaism. That is true. That is true. Okay, so there's one example of these battles that took place on X. And these are the things, apparently, some of the examples that sort of set her off. But isn't this fascinating? And notice that was October 16th, so people are directly talking to her. And this is what made her say the statement she's going to say later. Do you have any real reason to believe that blacks are more related to ancient Israelites than Jews are? Or is this just something you believe for egotistical reasons? Now, this might be because later on what she said that I'm going to try to share here. So the order is a little confused, but people might have been reading too much into what she was saying. Because, let me see here. All right. And she says, that is not even what was said. And this whole thing really just shows how adverse to concepts of black Jewry you guys all are. Now, see, everyone's making the same mistake. You all are. There are a lot of Jews who are really trying to include black folks into their to their mix. Rabbi Harry is a famous example. The guy who does acid or shrooms or whatever he does when he gets into his Judaism. But nonetheless, it's not true to say all are. Now, maybe she means the people she's just talking to, though. Like watching you all jump through hoops and having Jews text me this and that, whatever, is quite irritating and embarrassing. So she's getting annoyed. And there's something to be said for tact, especially with your allies. How did you just make this up? So she's saying, you make up what I said. Okay, hello, C. Hello, Nate. Hello, D. New. And Ham Sunshine says, vocab, can we just drop the hammer and say that lineage does not matter anymore after Jesus? Well, if you're talking about theologically in relation to salvation, that's true. And I think I've said that 1,000 times to Hebrew Israelites. But if we're just talking about facts and trying to understand evidence, then that's what I'm going to talk about. And I don't want to say that lineage doesn't matter because God made us in the image of himself, and then that manifests itself through actually our parentage, even though we may not always be aware, obviously, going back so far. But it's God made us who we are for a certain reason, why I say that. Taiki says the Igbo are older than the Ashkenazi, and they are ancient Israelites by blood. Two different haplogroups, so who is the true Jew? Okay, so Taiki, I appreciate your perspective, but I strongly disagree. The claims of Igbo Israelite identity are mainly modern, and the best scholars in this, they show it definitively with primary sources. Tudor Parfit and Edith, I think Bruner is how you say the last name. They have a couple. Bruder. Edith Bruder have a good volume called African Zion that has a couple chapters on this, and there's other books as well. And no disrespect, other people do agree with you, but the Igbo identity is sort of a new thing in and of itself. Before, the Igbo peoples didn't consider themselves Igbo altogether now. It was sort of Europeans and missionaries, for example, and other colonialists who kind of categorized them all together as one people. And then especially missionaries who wanted to find the lost tribes of Israel started pointing out maybe this, maybe that. And so you actually have, mainly in the modern era, like mainly the 20th century, people who had Igbo background converting into Judaism. And that's why synagogue construction is up there. So I don't hold they're ancient Israelites by blood because of the haplogroup. I don't think there's really any chance that their strand of the E, because they're E carriers by and large, goes back to the Levant. That's where it stands as of now. So who's the true Jew? Well, that goes back to Ham Sunshine's statement, Tykeith. I would say the true Jew is the Christian ultimately. The true Jew is the Christian. That's what I hold to spiritually speaking. Now I understand we're talking about different things here, and I'm okay with that. Yes, Mike B, that's what I brought up, and you are correct. Okay, so you have this back and forth, and it's quite interesting. I don't know. Some of you may not find this interesting, and maybe that's why I have a small YouTube presence. But I think it's interesting. And she says it's kind of giving that. And that's what the kids say now. Giving, right? Learned a bit too much about how Ethiopian Jews are treated. And so there is saying, hey, you found out. Basically what he's saying there is, well, you found out how racist Israelis are to the Ethiopians. Is that what you found out? And now you're changing your tune? And so these are very interesting discussions. And this one's a little harder to read because it's sort of a wall. But let's try to go in here and see if we can snatch this and look at some of this as well. Okay, I'm doing my best. I think it's going to be harder for you guys to see. Palestinians have... Oh, this is the main tweet. Oh, I wish it wasn't so low res. I apologize. That's too bad. That's too bad. Okay, well, I'm sorry. That's too bad because this is actually the main tweet here that needs to be seen, is what she said right here. Oh, man, how do I don't think I'm going to make it any clearer. I'm going to have to read it, and then you guys will just have to hear what I say. Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, so let me get myself there and then make this here. Okay, I don't have a producer. Palestinians have more Semitic DNA than Ashkenazi Jews, so that means even Palestinians are more Jewish than Ashkenazis. Azealia Banks said this. She's a huge supporter of Israel. Now, it's funny how everyone becomes an expert on DNA all of a sudden when it comes to Jews, right? You notice that? Everyone becomes an expert. I just am scraping along, taking information as I understand it, trying to make tentative, careful statements, you know? Honestly, the Jews are getting effing boring, and this is why you have no friends. Whoa! Now, I'm going to be frank. There are people who have felt they have been historically very supportive of Israelis and Israel and felt slighted and felt like, why are you treating allies this way? There are people who do have that experience. But just like it's wrong to stereotype and group and sort of take it out on a whole people or a nation, with any group of people, same thing with Israelis who are just people, you know? And by and large, all due respect, unregenerate. But this is the frustration that she's feeling, and she is letting it out, okay, here on X. Like, what are y'all even talking about? You're effing white Europeans, grow the F up. I have two eyes, I can see. So it seems like what she's saying is, hey, you Ashkenazim are basically just Europeans over here. I can tell because I know that that's not what the people of this area would have originally looked like by and large. And Azealia says, oh, now it's heritage, and then shares a comment here. Heritage is more than just DNA. Some Palestinians may carry genes, but Jews preserve the culture. Now, there's some logic to this point, by the way. There is some truth about the overlap of genes, but it is also true that Jews are the ones who preserve the culture. Now, there's different versions, so to say preserve the culture with that definite article is a little misleading, but I understand where this this X poster is coming from. Language, and that's absolutely true as far as preserving the Hebrew. You just really can't deny it. And religion across millennia. To me, this is essentially an undeniable statement. But it doesn't mean they preserve it perfectly because everything changes. The Judaism of the Middle Ages is not the Judaism of Jesus' day, and it's definitely not the Judaism of Moses' day. DNA without lived continuity does not transmit the spiritual or cultural legacy of the Israelites. Now, there's some interesting thoughts behind there, but I think we understand what the person's saying. Azealia says, see, now I understand why people support Palestine. She's over... Here's the other thing I didn't mention. While she's saying all this, she's in Israel. Now, she is unpredictable and a loose cannon, but she's in Israel when she's saying that. And this, my beloved Jews, is why you shouldn't endorse mentally ill celebrities just because they agree with you. Ashkenazim are descendants from Israelites. Cry about it. See, this attitude is not helpful. And it's not true that Ashkenazim are a one-to-one correlation to ancient Israelites. It's just not if you're talking genetically. It's not. Now, within the Ashkenazim, if you do a population study, are there a good percentage, especially if you take mother and father side, paternal and maternal, especially if you take autosomal, then just forget about it. But if you take that, are you going to get DNA that with a lot of the people goes back to Levant? Yes, but not with all, and sometimes it's in very small percentages. You know? And this is just some of the stuff. Now, this has got all kinds of people talking across the internet. Now, you may say, but this is not what I follow. This is not what I look into. Doesn't got me talking. I understand that, but take my word for it as someone who follows this kind of stuff and is in these spaces. There are a significant amount of numbers of people looking into this, okay? And I'm going to play some clips from a Hebrew Israelite named Brother Tim in a little bit here. And you're going to see what he wants to say about it, because he's definitely got a lot to say about it. And I think it'll be eye-opening. Live chat, what do you think? And live chat, have you filled out the poll? I know it's a little bit different type of poll. Have you hit the like button to this video? Have you left a comment? And have any of you thought about coming on? I actually have the link. People can come on. And here's what she says. Sure. She's kind of clarifying what she was saying earlier. But I was talking about Israelites in the Black Hebrew Rastafarian and Black Christianity Hebrew Bible sense. I wasn't talking about Israel, the Levant, Ethiopians, or any of this. Thank you for this long explanation about a completely different topic. And Israel Kai was a little more, I think, even-handed. I didn't see the whole thing. First, I appreciate all the support of Israel. See, that's a nice way to start a conversation if you're going to disagree. Want to address this latest post and realize you might be new to this whole Jewish history thing, so let me explain. I understand it's trying to be sympathetic, but it could also come across as condescending. But this is a better approach about these issues, because don't we want to try to understand each other? I say yes. And let's work on understanding each other and doing a better job at this. Why not? It'll only be good for all of us if we do. Don't we agree? But in the meantime, what we have with this whole situation is what I would like to call a fiasco. Now, do you want to watch Brother Tim? Well, sorry either way, because we're going to. Here's a Hebrew Israelite commenting on this situation. Let's see what he got to say.
Or black. But that doesn't seem like black behavior, right? To sit here and say, oh, okay, the Arabs are colonizers too, No, because we don't care who it was that did it. You know what I'm saying? All of them, we like, y'all some wicked people, right? So,
okay, Brother Tim Stevens is quite popular, which is a shame, because I would describe him.
Why would she be taking the side of Jew?
And I don't like saying this about a man who's older, but a rather foolish man. And I mainly say that because some of the immaturity he displayed in dealing with me, and the fact that if you look up his profile on Canary Mission, he is literally an out-and-out supporter of Hitler. And I don't mean that in a vague, analogy sense. I mean, he literally defends Hitler on a regular basis. Multiple times he defends Hitler. So this is who this guy is. Now, what he's saying is Azelia's tweets don't seem like black behavior. Never let anyone stereotype black folks as much as a Hebrew Israelite, and talk about stereotyping people and trying to put them in a box according to your prescriptions. So he's saying that because Azealia said, hey, look, this is when she came back around and did yet kind of another U-turn. And she was saying, hey, you guys are defending the Arabs, but black folks shouldn't defend them because they're colonizers too. That's what ended up being said. So listen.
No, because you see, it's the deflection thing. Now, this doesn't sound like, an Hebrew Israelite or African American, right? Let's, for the context of this discussion, Azelia considers herself to be an African American or black. But that doesn't seem like black behavior, right? To sit here and say, oh, okay, the Arabs are colonizers too, no, because we don't care who it was that did it. You know what I'm saying? All of them, we like, y'all some wicked people, right? So why would she be taking the side of Jewish people? That does not seem like she's writing that. I guarantee she.
You hear what he said? It does not seem like she's writing that. Notice whenever a Hebrew Israelite wants to emphasize how they think that folks are fake, they say Jewish people. It's so dumb. It is eminently stupid. Do you think that the British people are kind of like Brits, and the Irish people are kind of like people from Ireland, and the Danish people are kind of like Danes, and the Swedish people are sort of like Swedes? It is so dumb to say ish means like, and so it's proof that they're not real. My goodness.
I guarantee she probably got some Jewish agents or handlers or whatever.
You can guarantee, probably. So you hear how these guys speak? Their conspiracy theory levels are so high, and their anti-Semitism is so high that they just don't even know what they're saying. I can guarantee she probably. Well, which is it? He has no evidence to say that she's got Jewish handlers writing her tweets. And if she did, then why did she tweet that other stuff earlier, man? Explain that. Explain that.
Writing that and putting it on her post, and she just got to go along with it. And now they're trying to use her as another way of stirring up racial strife. You know what I'm saying? To deflect off them. Because why would she say all this stuff against Islam like that? Why? You know what I mean? Knowing that.
And this is why I say with all due respect that Brother Tim is a fool. Why would she disrespect Islam like that? Brother Tim, aren't you supposed to be a follower of the Bible? Isn't Islam a false religion? And if you know anything about the history of Islamic behavior, the way the religious adherents have conducted themselves, it is absolutely 100% a religion of conquest, death, and destruction, and subjugated black folks. This man is going to go in and say, why would she say that when she knows a lot of black people are Islamic? Why are they Islamic, Brother Tim? Because they were conquered and subjugated, and that is why they named themselves Muhammad, a slave owner who owned black slaves. And that's an Arab man from the tribe of Qurayshi. Has nothing to do with ancient African identity. You totally... Now, I know you're not a Muslim, you're a Hebrew Israelite, but what a foolish... Why would she do that? You should be applauding her, calling out Islamic hypocrisy. Huh?
Why would she say all this stuff against Islam like that? Why? You know what I mean? Knowing that so many African Americans are Muslims in this country, right? But you're just going to defend the Jewish people? What, did you never hear that the Jewish people owned the slave ships, owned plantations? That they were very instrumental in financing all of slavery, right? So the bottom line is, they can sit there and try to make it look like they were the ones who was the most persecuted. That's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. You see what I'm saying? They had just as much to do with slavery as the Arabs did. Because, the Jews and the Catholics were very instrumental in the transatlantic.
Much to do with it as the Arabs did. You just don't know the history of these matters, You just don't know. Now, this is a common aspects of the transatlantic slavery, yes, and you can find all kinds of people involved, but they were not significant in the way anti-Semites portray it. I have a couple books on this. I'll go grab them during the next clip. This is a common talking point where they go out of the way to try to find Jewish involvement. But to say it's more significant than Arab involvement is ridiculous. One reason is there's just so many more Arabs than Jews, And it's literally part of their religion. Better Day says, I've seen a couple of this man takes. He contradicts all his videos by the end of his own takes. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm going to play the next clip from Brother Tim, some references that you can have to look deeper into the issue, because that's not the title or the topic of this.
Azealia Banks. Now, the bottom line is Azealia Banks. You think she don't got Jewish handlers? You think that, she knows all of this stuff about Islam and all this type of stuff, and she ain't learning it from those people over there? She just talked about that the dude from Tommy, the Britain guy, going over there to become a politician, right? So you sitting up here and you hear all of this pro-Israel stuff, and you think she was just, because she was just being whatever. You think she didn't have a battery in her back? You think she didn't have strings on her? You know what I mean? To say those things that she was saying, right? And even now, you know what I mean? Because they're getting bludgeoned, you know what I mean, in public relations, you know what I mean? Now all of a sudden, you know, people are trying to shift this thing to say, well, it's not really, you know, the Jewish people, they're not the real, you know, Hebrews, they're not the real, you know, the Palestinians are.
Eyes closed, fitting, apropos. Okay, now let's stop right here. We're going to come back to this in a second here. I want to talk to you guys, all right? Let me show you some books in relationship to this. Islam's Black Slaves, specifically on the topic at hand. The Other Black Diaspora by Ronald Segal. This is a good book. It's described from the Los Angeles Times Book Review as valiant, well-weighed, and well-judged. I referenced this in my debate with Shadid Lewis. That's from a more scholarly perspective. This is published by Christian Liberty Books. This is a South African brother. Slavery, Terrorism, Islam. A small book, sort of definitely by Peter Hammond. Definitely a provocative book, no doubt about that. Smaller by Bill Warner. He does great work. The Doctrine of Slavery, an Islamic Institution. And this is based upon verifiable facts. And he really deals with the politics. Listen, for 1,400 years, Islam waged jihad in Africa. They enslaved non-Muslims everywhere they went. They ran the slave markets, not only on the west coast of Africa, but also in North Africa and East Africa. It goes back to the doctrine of slavery and the practice of Muhammad. A bigger book, pretty exhaustive, on New York University Press, by Eli Faber, professor of history. Jews, Slaves, and the Slave Trade, Setting the Record Straight. These are actually scholarly works that get into the primary resources and show you so you can actually learn the truth about these issues. Saul Friedman, Jews and the American Slave Trade, by Routledge. That's a historical publisher. And then a smaller one that deals with the Nation of Islam's claim specifically, the Farrakhan book called The Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews. This is by Harold Brackman, called Ministry of Lies. Good little book. Okay, so there's some examples there. Can't discuss that in depth here, but let's go back to Brother Tim Stevens.
Right? That's what, you know, everybody's starting to try to slide this thing over here, slide the discussion, because it doesn't matter that you believe in a lie, who the lie is, as long as you don't find out the truth.
He's saying that now they'll say anyone could be Jewish, just not black folks. And that man is just so ignorant. He just really hasn't studied the history of this. There's another book I should have grabbed called The Lost Tribes of Israel by Tudor Parfit, and it shows how bunches of people throughout history have been trying to claim to be lost tribes of Israel. It's actually from India to Japan to the Brits, and including a number of African or black folks as well. So it's just not true. There's even tribesmen in the hills of Afghanistan.
Right? If the Palestinians, y'all want to say that they are the true Hebrew Israelites, maybe there could be some couple over there, but
what do you know? Like, okay, what do you know? You know? Ham Sunshine, thank you for the super chat. Very much appreciated to you. And I think you should get, how about just some good old fire? Cannon fire, that is. All right, Brother Tim, what's he say?
Y'all want to say they're the true Hebrew Israelites, they're not even supposed to be there.
So now they're not supposed to be there. Who does he think is supposed to be there? Well, his religious cohorts.
They're supposed to be scattered. They're supposed to be scattered.
Oh, he's saying according to prophecy. That's what he's saying. I do think Arabs kind of are all over the world, buddy. And so are Jews. They have been.
Scattered in all these different lands. And they're not supposed to. Now, could there be pockets that's still there? That's why they're being afflicted? Absolutely.
That also goes for the Mizraim, the Jews who never left, who were there, not just in Israel, but in Persia and in ancient Babylon, and continued on in Iraq and Iran.
But as a whole, they were supposed to be kicked out and scattered worldwide. So again,
he's saying they don't fulfill the prophecies. This is his Hebrew Israelism talking. He thinks everything's got to be fulfilled through Deuteronomy 28. It's a made-up standard that they've invented. They hate DNA, but they think Deuteronomy 28 is the way.
Tell me why. You see what I'm saying? Of all the people in this world who were scattered and put on slave ships and had yokes of iron upon their necks, the rest of everybody, all these people in the media, can't figure that out.
Conspiracy theory. Hey, someone should look up yokes of iron and see if they were applied to other peoples and other nations. And someone should look up yokes of iron in the Bible and find out if other nations got it. By the way, the answer is yes to both of those. Now, we're going to have to switch here. There's more to say about this, but we need to get on to the next thing, which is Daniel Muir. So if you notice the show here, it's not just about Azealia Banks. Now, we're going to spend less time on this than the first thing. We're not going to do the whole thing with Azealia just to say now she's sort of come back around and sort of did even a little apology. I'm not going to read, here's the apology thing. Okay, this is the last thing I'll show. Okay, this is the last thing I'll show in relationship to Azealia Banks. And then we're going to switch over to the other side here. Let me see. What's a better way for me to go? I guess like this is probably better since it's already like that. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Okay. Am I wrong for saying the black Hebrew Israelites living in Israel, enlisting in the IDF, paying taxes, and defending its right to exist are more of an Israelite than some leftist Ashkenazi a-hole in Britain who never visits Israel, only claims their Jewishness to write articles about how terribly right-wing the Israelis are, and says, ish like, my life as a Jew would be so much better if Israel didn't exist? Hey, to me, she's actually talking good right there. Now, excuse the crass language. Now, the thing is, it's not like it was clear to everyone that's exactly what she was saying initially. This may have been in her head, but I mean, to me, she's talking good. I'm studying the selfish, effing, uptight, white a-holery of the anti-Zionist secular Ashkenazi left. Now, that's more specific there because they think it's a good idea to help destroy a place that is home to tons of black and brown people. She is right about that. She is right about that. Just to impress the black and brown people who have invaded the West. Ooh, she's getting spicy. And that it's just some selfish white a-hole mentality, and sorry, it won't leave my mind. Now, she may be strawmanning people here a bit, but all of these Mizrahi Jews and Ethiopian Jews in Israel are beautiful, and this is their home. Look up Mizrahi Jews if you're not for sure what she's talking about there. It is important. Anti-Zionist Jews are selfish and weak. So now it is sort of a different discussion, And these Ashkenazi Jews in Israel are not weird like British Jews. I don't know. I guess she's an entertainer for a reason because you see this, Real quick, if you want to see an example of Mizrahi, this is a Judean Yemenite bride in Israel in 1984. In 1984, there. I don't know how clear this is going to be. Me and my Israeli buddy Tomer were talking about this today, and he told me he actually almost married a Yemenite girl. It's not going to show, is it? I'm doing what I can. I thought it would show. I got the brightness all the way down. It's actually a clear picture, so you're not going to really be able to see it, are you? Sorry, I tried. Anyways, continuing on with her. Honestly, American Ashkenazi Jews are my favorite people. But the British, honey, what is you doing? Who even are y'all? Okay. And that's a bad story, by the way, there. It's hard to believe that it's true, the first one, but apparently it is from what I've been able to see. But let's switch over now. Since I'm already on this screen, I'm just going to switch over to the next thing, which is what we're going to talk about, which is Daniel Muir. Former Colts player facing more charges connected to his teenage son's disappearance, alleged abuse. So now we're transitioning to the second part, which is a smaller part of the show here, about a former NFL player turned Hebrew Israelite who abused his son. And the reason why we're doing this now is because there's been new charges added. Court documents show the state added a count of battery resulting in serious bodily injury on account of obstruction of justice against Daniel Muir. This is a former NFL guy. Beat his 14-year-old son, and according to a secret video recorded call, he says he beat his A like a grown man. This is an NFL player. Gave the son a black eye. That's his wife, named Kristen, or actually, should I say, one of his wives. He's there in Logansport, Indiana. He's in charge of the Indiana version of Straitway Truth Ministries, which is a Hebrew Israelite organization that are filled with prepper charismatics and got a lot of former military and NFL guys in their organization under the leadership of Pastor Charles Dowell. Come in here. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'll tell you, people, truly and verily, I'll tell you. That reminds me of Foghorn Leghorn. That's who Charles Dowell is. But this is a serious story. Byline is October 20, 2025, WTHR out of Indianapolis, where it's 40 degrees right now. My goodness. A former Indianapolis Colts player who faces charges in connection with his teenage son's disappearance is facing 2 additional charges. Court documents show the state added a count of battery resulting in serious bodily injury and a count of obstruction of justice against Daniel Muir. These are on top of the obstruction and domestic battery charges he already faced. His wife, Kristen Muir, is also charged with obstruction of justice because they went and they hid the son. They were worried actually he was maybe dead at a certain point in the story. The Muir's charges came after a SWAT raid ended in their arrest. They actually went into Straitway Indiana there. And that's them. And on June 14th, 2024, the Muir's teenage son, Bryson Muir, was last seen at the home of his grandmother, Cheryl Wright. So she's a Christian, and she saw the black eye and reported to the police. She lives in Cleveland, near Cleveland, Ohio. Shortly before he went missing, Wright went to pick Bryson up in Toledo at her daughter's request. Wright said he had a black eye. Oh, listen, Toledo, not Cleveland, I guess is what they're saying here. But it's all northern Ohio. Had a black eye, fat lip, and a swollen face. Bryson's grandmother believed the former Colts player and her daughter were hiding Bryson because they didn't want police to see his beat-up face. That means he was worse, you see? But when they got the pictures from then, investigators searched for the teen, declared a silver alert, and claimed Daniel and Kristen wouldn't cooperate. Nearly 3 weeks later, police found Bryson on the Muir's property in Logansport. As of right now, court documents reveal Daniel was representing himself in trial. Here's something you must know about the Straitway Truth Ministry Hebrew Israelite branch. They are sovereign citizens. When you think sovereign citizen, a lot of you just simply think, if you know anything about this, the Moors are not synonymous with being sovereign citizens. There's lots of other types of sovereign citizens as far as this legal theory. We've done some shows on it. Maybe Dean, you can drop the link. We did one with Carmen once. And so they're going to represent themselves. We've seen this time and time again with them. Tahar, GMS, he believes in a softer version of this as well. This is something that a lot of Hebrew Israelites have adopted, but not all. But definitely at Straitway, it's basically part of their doctrine, to be honest with you. Definitely part of their practice. In those same documents, the court warned Daniel against using artificial intelligence to prepare his motions. That's interesting. I don't know why are there rules. Why? I actually don't understand that. Why can't he use AI to prepare his motions? I need to understand why that's a problem. Why would they warn him against that? Why are you not allowed to do that? That actually doesn't strike me as right. I must be missing something I'm not aware enough. I actually don't think I like that, just off rip. The trial is scheduled to start in January 2026 with a special judge presiding over it after Daniel successfully asked the Indiana Court of Appeals for a new judge in the case. The documents detail alleged abuse. According to court documents, Daniel Muir explained to another person through a recorded phone call that Indiana State Police investigators said appeared to start recording mid-conversation as to why Bryson Muir was in trouble. Daniel then goes into detail about inappropriate behavior, who said he, quote, whooped his A like a grown A man, end quote. Court documents say that during the recorded conversation, Daniel also said that if the family lived in their homeland, he said Bryson would have been put to death for his acts. Wow. I actually talked to a member of Straitway about the situation. He was like, hey, we own our kids, basically, is what he said. We own our kids. They're our property. Thank you very much, Ham Sunshine, for the super chat. Appreciate you. Court documents say that during the recorded conversation, Daniels also said if the family lived in their homeland, he said Bryson would have been put to death for his acts. Instead, the Muir family lives in the United States, so Daniel said Bryson could not be put to death for his actions. Man, bro. They show the kid. I hate this part. This is just so sad. And you know he looked worse initially. Investigators then spoke with Kirsten Muir, who allegedly told them a different story about how Bryson got his injuries. According to court documents, Kirsten said Bryson was taking out the trash and walked over to the train tracks near their Logansport property because he liked trains. While near the track, Kirsten said Bryson allegedly told her that he had been punched by someone he didn't know. Bryson Muir's grandmother shared a photo of alleged abuse of the teen with Indiana State Police investigators. This is making me mad and sad all at the same time. With Bryson's safety in mind, Kristen told investigators that Muir decided to move Bryson to his grandmother's home in Ohio. According to court documents, Kristen said she removed Bryson from his grandmother's care because she was making decisions she didn't agree with. After taking Bryson from his grandmother's house, Kristen reportedly told investigators that the Muirs took Bryson to a family member's house nearby where his grandmother lived. Court documents say Kristen told investigators that the Muirs then pulled their car over to the side of the road so she could breastfeed. During that time, Kristen said police arrived and were looking for Bryson, who was not with them. That's when she said the Muirs went back to their home in Logansport. Investigators then spoke with Daniel, who allegedly said Bryson was in the car with them when police approached their car. However, Daniel claims police said they were looking for a 14-year-old female, not male. So Daniel allegedly told police that there was nobody in the car with that description. According to court documents, Daniel said it was days later when Bryson was taken to another location. Judge modifies no contact order. Daniel and Kristen have been allowed to see their teenage son with Indiana Department of Child Services supervision. That was the ruling from a judge in Cass County Court on August 1st, 2024. The judge agreed to modify a no contact order between the Muirs and their child while they are awaiting trial. Attorneys for the Muirs argued that Department of Child Services has already agreed to supervise visits with the child, so the judge should too. The judge agreed, believing DCS would provide adequate supervision of the visits. And there's 13 News reporter Justin Grove breaking down the latest development in the case against them. And that's them. All right. Servant Leaders Foundation connection. Daniel and Kristen were known members of the Servant Leaders Foundation. I may say, well, hold on, vocab. I thought it was Straitway. Well, it appears, I don't know if this is exactly what happened, that after the guy down in the south left, Elder Rufus, and that big shakeup happened, it appears that they wanted to make sure they disconnected even further any potential people that might leave and the leaders from the property in their name, so everything's under the Servant Leaders Foundation. That's sort of the legal name behind Straitway that holds property for them as their sort of clever tactic. While a simple search of the Servant Leaders Foundation won't lead to many results, a YouTube channel for the group can be found under the name of Straitway Help Meets. In one of the page's most recent videos, Daniel can be seen leading a service for the group. Daniel was featured in dozens of videos on the page where he's referred to as Shepherd Pastor Muir, and Brother Daniel Muir. According to the records, the group is the registered owner of the property that the Muirs were found in, with no trespassing signs posted all over the area. Oh, that's the end of the article there. Okay. Now you want to watch some video of this. I'm going to play some video of Daniel Muir teaching, and he is going to talk about his women, because apparently one ain't enough. Yep, Daniel's got women. They are big polygamists. It's Straitway, and apparently it's not just Dowell. It's some of the other leaders get in on the action too, including Daniel Muir.
Don't it sound amazing when we all worship? Don't it sound amazing when we all scream hallelujah?
So sorry. I am going to play. Okay, I'm going to play, I say, a video of him talking about his women. But first, I wanted to play this. I forgot I had this line up first. Of him preaching, and it sounds relatively normal and tame. And you might watch it and be like, these guys are all right. But then once you get farther into the other stuff, you see the other stuff going down. So I want to play this first just so you can see the way it might come across. This is Daniel Muir teaching about worshiping together.
Don't it sound amazing when we all worship? Don't it sound amazing when we all scream hallelujah at the same time? That ain't no vain boasting. That's all of us at the same time boasting in him. And guess what? When we all scream that at the same time, guess what? All of heaven doing it at the same time too. Man, come on, man. Doesn't that always rocks my mind, bro? To think that we are worshiping the King at the same time all of the hosts of heaven is, bro. And the word said that they do it day and night. Screaming, holy, holy, holy is Yah.
All right, so there's that. Now, let's compare that to another clip of Daniel Muir. And, this is a former NFL player, remember. Who is this person? He's a former NFL player for the...
Whenever this subject comes up, right, what's the first thing come to people's mind? Sex. Right? Now, is that wrong? No, it's not. However, if that's the most intimate time I have with them, is when it's 4:30 in the morning and they downstairs and we praying and crying out to Yah together.
Okay, so Daniel Muir is a Hebrew Israelite. He is a former NFL lineman with the Indianapolis Colts primarily. I think he played for the Raiders too. And that's him talking about his women. So the subject under discussion is polyamory or polygamy. I'll probably end with that clip. But first, let me play when this went down. And then another one. This one is actually only audio. And then another one that's more recent. It's a reporter outside of the courthouse about
with an update to a case we've been following for weeks. Former Colts player Daniel Muir and his wife Kristen will be released from Cass County Jail. This decision comes 1 week after the couple was told they would be denied bail because they were a flight risk. Daniel Muir is charged with domestic battery and obstruction of justice, while his wife solely faces the latter charge. The charges are in connection to the disappearance of their 14-year-old son Bryson, whom police found last week during a search of the couple's property in Logansport. The Muirs are scheduled to appear in court Tuesday.
All right, so there's a little bit. One more update. You understand this is ongoing, and these are important things that affect people's lives.
I've got an update in the case of former Colts defensive lineman Daniel Muir and his wife Kristen Muir in a case that started as a silver alert last summer. And Daniel Muir was charged with domestic battery. Both he and his wife were charged with obstruction of justice. When the boy could not be located after a grandmother reported that the boy had a black eye that was allegedly at the hands of his father, Daniel Muir. Now a judge has ruled that the prosecutor can add 2 more felony counts to those charges against Daniel Muir. So now he also faces an additional felony count of battery resulting in injury, and also another felony count of obstruction of justice in a case involving child abuse. Daniel and his wife Kristen are scheduled now to go on trial in January in Cass County. And you may remember, ultimately the couple was arrested when state police conducted a raid on their religious compound in Logansport. This is a Cass County case, but a special judge has been assigned out of Pulaski County to hear the case, and she has ruled that 2 more charges can be added against Daniel Muir. And again, the trial now set for January 13th.
All right, update there. Now, taking a look at the super chat, got another one in, which is really awesome. Definitely got to give a little sound for that. Thank you very much, Ramona and Mom. I do remember y'all from the video, just like Dinu says, and also from the events of that night out there with God Logic. You guys are awesome, great people, and you're up very late, I must say. My goodness. Now let's take a look at the live chat here. Got some interesting things, specifically when I look at the comments here. We have a gentleman who is named Source Materials, and he says, "Why is this gossip Christian business? Be ye not a busybody in other people's affairs." Isn't it amazing? You got to be Hebrew Israelite, because no sane, morally sane person would come on and say, "Hey, look at this 14-year-old child getting beat up. This doesn't affect you. Hey, love your neighbor as yourself." That isn't that in the scripture? And doesn't the scripture say that we should protect the vulnerable? That is a very good scripture verse that I think is extremely relevant to this discussion, don't you? And also, doesn't Jesus say that if you cause a young one to go astray, it'd be better if a millstone was thrown around your neck and you'd be thrown into the water, right? It does say that, doesn't it? Psalm 82:3 is a verse for you. "Defend the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the rights of the poor and oppressed." Proverbs 31:8 says, "Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute." And Jesus tells us in Matthew 25 that whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. James 1 says that we should care for the oppressed and their distress. Now it mentions orphans and widows, but obviously this would apply to this young man as well. And yet you don't care. And people make a good point back at you. Daughter says, "You want to keep abuse in the dark? Are you a cover-upper of child abuse?" I agree. I agree with that. Dinu, it's not gossip, it's a case in the courts. Exactly. Public domain information. The abuse is terrible. Don't you agree? Yes, exactly. I don't understand your comment, honestly. What do you guys think of that comment? And also, again, have you filled out the poll? I hope that you have. So tragic, you pounded the boy. Yeah, exactly. Big boy. Yeah, exactly. Protect the vulnerable. Yeah, exactly. And Ham Sunshine, it made the news. Exactly. Come on now. Another question I saw that I wanted to get to, just a couple. Mike B makes a lot of great comments. I wish I could get more to those. But one question you ask is Tim Stevens a one-Wester or a non-one West Hebrew Israelite? He would be understood to be a non-one Wester, a non-camper. In fact, I was in a discussion on X with a Hebrew Israelite the other day, and he said, "We're not all like those camp guys." And I said, "Okay, what are good examples of moderate, balanced Hebrew Israelite teachers you want to name?" And he gave me a list. And one of the names was Brother Tim Stevens. And I said, "Tim Stevens?" I said, "This Tim Stevens?" And I shared a bunch of his tweets and a bunch of his Facebook posts. And I said, "Is that who you're talking about?" Now, if you don't want to do all the research yourself, just go to Canary Mission. Canary Mission exposes anti-Semitism in its most extreme forms and has a profile on Brother Tim Stevens. You just read through it and you're like, okay, the man defends Hitler. I mean, come on. But he's not a one-Wester. And Cynthia's right. He needs to go back to studying the truth. He's actually really popular, unfortunately, and thinks he's doing amazing work. A lawful good says, Arnold Murray and his ilk are very confident the British and Europeans are the real lost tribes. Ludicrous. I have a whole section on my bookshelf that talks about that, British Israelism. I've done a few shows on it as well. War Machine makes the great point that Deuteronomy 28 was fulfilled in Jeremiah Daniel. Absolutely. Daughter says, I think Azealia has bipolar or something. She has mentioned mental health struggles, and apparently she's a witch. By the way, she does claim to be that. That is true as well. And there's like a video, I think you had mentioned it, where she's like cleaning out her closet or something, and she's talking about being a witch in the video. And so, you know, she's got some problems, a little confused in there, a little confused in various ways. Paul says, I'm 70 years old, been a Christian for almost 40 years. Anyone that calling out child abuse wrong makes me wonder, Amen. Yes. And last comment, a beautiful comment. This is back in the summer in Times Square, and the Ramona and her mom mentioned what happened. One of the things that happened that night. We ministered to someone, and he accepted the Lord that night. That's true. Amen. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's really what this is all about, saving souls. So we got to raise awareness and talk about this. Listen, I've enjoyed being with you guys tonight. Please consider supporting this channel by becoming a channel member or by joining our Patreon. The information is all over the channel. You can find it's not too hard. And definitely pray for us as well at Street Apologist. And right now, I'm going to skedaddle because I actually got to work in the morning, which is crazy, but it is what it is. And so let's call it a night. God bless.
Street apologist.